When a massive private jet landed behind her house, the entire neighborhood screamed. No one expected it. Not for her. Not for the girl everyone bullied into silence. She had been forced into a loveless marriage. A marriage to a man trapped in a broken body. A man the world had already given up on. People whispered behind their backs. They laughed at their pain. They called them the sad couple. No one believed in them. Not until the day the world witnessed a miracle that proved two broken souls could rise higher than anyone ever imagined. 21-year-old Maya Benson had mastered the art of being invisible. For as long as she could remember, she had learned how to shrink herself, how to walk quietly, speak softly, breathe lightly, and exist in the smallest space possible. Not because she wanted to, but because the world seemed to demand it from her. She was overweight. She was painfully quiet. She was an orphan, and people never let her forget any of it. Her aunt, the woman who took her in after her parents died, never missed a chance to remind her how lucky she was to have a roof over her head. "Look at you," her aunt would say while rolling her eyes. "You're too big, too slow, too soft. No boy will ever look at a girl like you twice." Sometimes the words came like a slap, sometimes like a knife, but they always cut. Maya learned not to answer back, not to cry where anyone could see, not to hope for too much. The house she lived in wasn't a home. It was just a place she survived in. She slept in the smallest room, wore clothes 2 sizes too tight because that was all she was given, and kept her head down so she wouldn't be accused of seeking attention. There were no birthday celebrations, no warm hugs, no "I'm proud of you," no memories worth keeping. Just loneliness squeezed into the shape of a girl. That morning began like any other. Maya swept the living room while her aunt sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. The sunlight spilling in through the curtains painted the room gold, but nothing about the moment felt warm. Her aunt didn't look up as she spoke. "You're getting married," she announced casually, like she was talking about the weather. Maya froze mid-sweep. Her heart dropped. Her throat tightened. She slowly turned around. Married? To who? Her aunt finally looked at her, her face blank, emotionless, almost bored. To a crippled man. His parents said he needs companionship. And you're suitable. That word hit Maya harder than anything else. Suitable. Not loved. Not chosen. Not valued. Just suitable. Like a piece of furniture someone picked because it was cheap, not because it was wanted. Maya's chest tightened until it felt hard to breathe. She felt her eyes burn with tears, but she didn't dare let them fall. Crying only made things worse. Her voice came out small. "Do I have a choice?" Her aunt scoffed. "Don't start with that nonsense. This is the best offer you'll ever get. You should be grateful someone even wants you. Grateful for being married off like a burden someone wanted to drop. Grateful for being given to a man she didn't know. Grateful for having zero say in her own life." Her aunt's eyes sharpened. "The wedding is next week. Don't embarrass me." With that, she stood up and left the room, leaving Maya alone with her confusion, fear, and the sweeping broom that suddenly felt too heavy to hold. That night, Maya lay in her small bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. She hugged her pillow tightly, trying to calm the panic that crawled up her throat. She didn't know anything about the man. She didn't know what he looked like. She didn't know if he was kind, or cruel, or angry at the world. All she knew was that he couldn't walk, and somehow that made her good enough to be his wife. Maya closed her eyes and whispered into the darkness. "Why me?" But she already knew the answer, because she had no one. No parents, no siblings, no one to defend her or fight for her. She was alone, and alone people were easy to control. Maya pulled her blanket up to her chin and let silent tears fall onto the pillow. She cried quietly the way she learned to do as a child. It was safer that way, safe to hurt where no one could see. She didn't cry for the wedding. She cried because she felt like her life didn't belong to her anymore, like she was drifting wherever the world pushed her. Like a leaf caught in the wind. The girl the world rejected. The girl with no voice. The girl who was about to step into a marriage she didn't choose. The next few days passed in a blur. Her aunt never mentioned love, never mentioned happiness, never asked if Maya was scared. She only talked about the chores Maya needed to finish before she left. Don't forget to fold the laundry. Scrub the bathroom tiles properly. Don't be lazy. And for the love of God, don't embarrass us at the wedding. Try not to look like you're about to cry. Every word reminded Maya of how replaceable she was in that house. She moved like a quiet shadow, doing everything she was told, wishing she could disappear entirely. Sometimes she wondered, is this all my life will ever be? But even wondering felt like a luxury she didn't deserve. The night before the wedding was the loneliest night of her life. Her aunt didn't bother checking on her. No one asked if she was okay. No one reassured her that things would get better. She sat on her bed with her knees pulled to her chest, her chin resting on her folded arms. Her wedding dress, simple, wrinkled and slightly loose, hung on the wall. She stared at it for a long time, swallowing the ache in her chest. For a moment, she imagined a different life. A normal life. One where she was loved. One where someone held her hand and told her she mattered. One where she wasn't too big or too quiet. Maybe in another universe, she thought, she would have been happy. But not here. Not now. Not in this life. She inhaled shakily and whispered, I wish someone, anyone, would see me. Morning came. Her aunt knocked on her door once. Hurry up. They're waiting. Maya dressed silently. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her simple dress. She had no makeup, no jewelry, no family members fussing over her hair. She looked like a girl going to a job interview, not a bride. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror. A soft round face, gentle eyes, a quiet sadness she couldn't hide. She didn't look ugly. She didn't look beautiful either. She just looked tired. When she walked out of the house, the sun felt too bright. Her aunt grabbed her wrist and pulled her forward like she was dragging a heavy suitcase. Maya didn't say a word. She didn't fight. She didn't complain. She simply obeyed because that was all she had ever known. But deep in her heart, a small whisper flickered. Maybe this wouldn't be the end. Maybe life had something else waiting for her. Something she couldn't see yet. Something that might one day make sense. She didn't know it at the time, but meeting Adrian Moore would change everything. Her world, her heart, her fate, and the girl the world rejected was about to start a story she never expected. Before the accident, Adrian Moore lived a life most young men only dreamed of. At 27, he was a rising star in the tech world, brilliant, ambitious, and admired. His name appeared in business magazines. His innovations were praised in conferences. His parents bragged about him at every dinner party. People said things like, he's going to change the world. He's unstoppable. He's the future. And Adrian believed it. He wanted to believe it. He worked late nights, slept in his office sometimes, sketched new ideas in notebooks that piled up around his apartment. He was hungry for success, not because he loved money, but because he loved creating things that made people's lives better. But everything changed in one moment. It happened on a rainy evening. Adrian had just finished a presentation and was driving home, exhausted but happy. The windshield was blurry from the storm. The streetlights flickered through the water. His favorite music played softly in the background. He never saw the truck coming. There was a scream, a crash, a violent spin of metal and glass. And then darkness. When he woke up in the hospital, everything felt wrong. His legs, they felt numb, heavy, distant, as if they didn't belong to his body anymore. The doctor's voice was gentle but firm. There was severe trauma to your lower spine. We will do everything we can, but you might not walk again. That sentence shattered him. Him, the unstoppable one, the brilliant one, the future, now trapped in a wheelchair. Just like that, his whole world collapsed. The weeks that followed were a blur of pain, surgeries, and medication. Adrian watched his muscles weaken. He watched his savings vanish, drained by medical bills. He watched opportunities slip through his fingers. He watched partners distance themselves. At first, friends visited. We're here for you, man. You'll bounce back. Stay positive. Then they visited less. Then they stopped. People didn't like being around broken things, especially people who used to shine. His parents stayed, of course. They were loving, loyal, terrified for him. They fed him, cared for him, stayed up when he cried through the night. But even they couldn't hide the fear in their eyes. Their son, once strong, once unstoppable, was losing hope. Completely. He tried everything. Therapists, new doctors, experimental treatments, pain specialists, acupuncture, hydrotherapy. Some days he thought he could feel slight tingles in his legs. Other days, nothing at all. And each failed attempt felt like another door closing. Sometimes he sat in the quiet of his room and whispered, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" Not because he believed he deserved answers, but because the silence inside him was too heavy to carry alone. He hated feeling helpless, hated watching his dreams crumble, hated being dependent on everyone. But what he hated the most was feeling like he had become a burden. His parents saw his pain. They weren't trying to replace his dreams or force a new path on him. They were simply desperate to give him something, anything, that might brighten the darkness swallowing him. Someone to talk to, someone to sit with him, someone who might soften his loneliness. That was how the idea of marriage came up. Not for romance, not for tradition, not for show, just companionship, just a warm presence in his cold world. Adrian didn't want it. The very thought of it felt like defeat. Who would want to marry a broken man? He asked one night, tears burning his eyes. His mother touched his hand, her voice shaky. Someone kind, someone gentle, someone who won't see you as broken. But Adrian didn't believe such a person existed. Not for him. The day Maya walked into his life, he was sitting in his wheelchair near the living room window, staring outside. He didn't expect anyone. He didn't want anyone. When he heard footsteps, he braced himself, expecting another doctor, another therapist, another pity-filled stranger. But instead, he saw her, a girl with soft eyes, a girl who looked scared, a girl who seemed to be trying to make herself smaller than she already was. She stood nervously beside his parents, her hands folding and unfolding as if she didn't know what else to do with them. Her aunt hovered behind her with a tight, proud smile, as though she was presenting a product, not a person. Adrian expected judgment. He expected disgust. He expected the pity he had seen in so many eyes. But when Maya looked at him, she didn't look away. She didn't wince. She didn't stare at the wheelchair. She looked directly into his eyes, and something in him shifted just slightly. Not hope, not happiness, more like recognition, a quiet understanding. Two broken souls meeting in the middle of their sadness. His parents introduced them, their voices gentle, hopeful, nervous. "This is Maya," his mother said. She's going to be your wife." Maya swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "Hello." Adrian nodded. "Hi." Silence fell, thick and uncomfortable. He didn't want a stranger forced into his life. And she didn't want to be there either. He could see it in her shy, trembling posture. In the way her eyes flickered downward every few seconds. In the way her aunt squeezed her shoulder slightly too hard. After a long moment, Adrian spoke softly. "You don't want this," he said. She slowly shook her head. "And neither do I." Her breath hitched, maybe in relief, maybe in fear. He expected the awkwardness to hang between them like fog. But instead, something unexpected happened. She didn't pity him. She didn't gush fake sympathy. She didn't force conversation. She simply lowered her gaze and whispered, "I'm sorry for everything you've gone through. Not, I'm sorry you're in a wheelchair. Not, I'm sorry your life is ruined. Just sorry for his pain." No one had said that to him before. Not like that. Not with that softness. For the first time in months, Adrian felt seen. Not as a broken man, not as a patient, not as a disappointment, but as a human being. The families talked logistics, details, arrangements. Adrian barely listened. He watched Maya instead, her hands nervously twirling the hem of her sleeve. her eyes drifting toward the window when no one was looking, the quiet sadness in her posture. He wasn't the only one trapped in a life he didn't choose. She was too. Two strangers. Two stories of pain. Two people forced into a future neither asked for. And somehow, that hurt him. As they were about to leave, Maya stood up and bowed her head politely. Adrian surprised himself by speaking again. "I don't know if I can make you happy," he said quietly. "But I won't hurt you." She looked at him, her eyes filling with a warmth he didn't expect. "And I won't judge you," she whispered. It was the smallest exchange. Barely a few sentences. Barely a flicker of connection. But it was enough to settle something inside his heart. For the first time in a long time, Adrian felt less alone. That night, he wheeled himself into his room, shut the door, and stared at the ceiling. His legs still hurt. His heart still felt heavy. His future still looked dark. But the voice of a quiet, trembling girl kept echoing in his mind. "I'm sorry for everything you've gone through." Maybe she understood pain. Maybe she understood loneliness. Maybe, just maybe, she was meant to cross his path. He didn't know what the future held. But for the first time since the accident, he didn't feel completely hopeless. Not when someone like Maya had looked at him without fear. Not when she spoke to him without pity. Not when their broken pieces seemed to fit together, if only slightly. And as he drifted into a restless sleep, one thought lingered. Maybe two broken souls could learn to heal together. The wedding day arrived faster than either of them expected or wanted. There were no flowers, no decorations, no cheerful music, no excited relatives wiping happy tears. Just a tiny hall borrowed for a few hours, a handful of neighbors eager to gossip, and two people walking toward a future neither had asked for. Maya stood at the entrance of the hall, her palms sweating inside the thin gloves her aunt forced her to wear. Her dress was simple, slightly loose around the waist, and a little too long, so she had to hold it carefully to avoid tripping. She didn't feel like a bride. She felt like a mistake being pushed into place. Her aunt leaned close and whispered sharply, "Keep your head up. Don't embarrass me." Maya nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She didn't say she was nervous. She didn't say she felt like running. She didn't say she was terrified of what came next. She just walked forward. Every step felt heavier than the last. Adrian sat at the front in his wheelchair, hands folded, expression unreadable. He looked neat and handsome in his dark suit, but anyone who knew him well could see the hollowness behind his eyes. His parents stood beside him for support, but even they looked uncertain, caught between hope and sadness. When the music began, everyone turned to look at Maya, and the whispers started instantly. "She's so big. Poor boy. He used to be so handsome and successful. What a terrible fate for both of them. This marriage is such a disaster. Two broken people. How sad." Maya tried not to flinch, tried not to cry, tried not to show how deeply the words stabbed her. But she heard every single one. Adrian heard them too. His jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. Not because the insults were directed at him, but because they were directed at her. And she didn't deserve that. When Maya reached him, their eyes met briefly. She expected judgment. She expected pity. She expected rejection. Instead, Adrian looked up at her gently and whispered, "It's okay. Just breathe." It was the first comforting thing anyone had said to her all day. Maybe all year. Maybe even all her life. The ceremony was short and painfully awkward. The officiant read the vows quickly, as though he wanted to get it over with. Their responses were quiet, timid, barely above a whisper. There were no smiles, no spark, no excited glances, just two tired souls agreeing to something they didn't fully understand. When they were pronounced husband and wife, polite claps echoed through the small hall. Maya didn't feel married. She felt numb. Her aunt hugged her stiffly. "Good. You're someone else's responsibility now." Adrian saw the way Maya's shoulders tensed under her aunt's grip. He said nothing, but something deep inside him shifted. An instinct to protect, though he didn't yet know how. When the small gathering ended, the newlyweds were taken to Adrian's home. His parents helped him into the car, and Maya sat beside him awkwardly, keeping her hands folded tightly in her lap. They didn't speak, not because they didn't want to, but because neither knew what to say. Maya kept glancing at him from the corner of her eye. She noticed the gentle slope of his shoulders, the quiet sadness in his expression, the way he avoided looking at his legs, as if they were a reminder of everything he lost. Adrian noticed her too, her trembling fingers, her stiff posture, the fear she tried so hard to hide. They were strangers, but their pain mirrored each other's. When they arrived at the house, Adrian's mother gave Maya a warm hug. "Welcome," she said softly. "You're safe here." Maya almost cried right there. No one had ever told her she was safe. Adrian's father nodded kindly. "If you need anything, you come to us. You're family now." Family. The word felt foreign, fragile, almost too fragile to touch. They showed her to the room she would be sharing with Adrian. It wasn't too big or too fancy, but it was clean, bright, and smelled faintly of lavender. Maya stood awkwardly near the bed while Adrian's parents wheeled him in. "We'll give you two some space," his mother said gently before closing the door. Silence fell. Maya took a careful step back, unsure what to do. I can sleep on the chair if you want," she whispered. Adrian shook his head. "No, please don't do that." She fumbled with her dress. "I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." He met her eyes. "I'm already uncomfortable," he said honestly. "But not because of you. Just everything." Maya nodded slowly. "I understand." She really did. She understood brokenness. She understood pain. She understood feeling unwanted, more than anyone else ever could. The first days of their marriage were silent. Not cold, not hostile, just quiet. They moved around each other like two shadows sharing the same space. Maya cleaned the room softly, careful not to disturb him. Adrian read books or stared out the window for hours, lost in his thoughts. They barely spoke at meals, barely made eye contact, barely existed in each other's world. But silence has a way of revealing the truth. And slowly they began noticing things. Maya noticed how Adrian winced whenever he tried to adjust his legs, how he clenched his jaw when the pain flared, how he swallowed hard whenever his wheelchair squeaked, like the sound itself mocked him. Adrian noticed the way Maya hesitated before sitting down, as if waiting for someone to bark at her, how she walked softly, expecting criticism, how she froze at sudden loud noises. Two people ruled by fear, two hearts stitched together by pain. One evening it happened. Adrian dropped a book by accident. It landed near his feet where he couldn't reach. He tried leaning forward. The pain shot up his spine. He winced and let out a sharp breath. Before he could attempt again, Maya hurried forward and picked it up. "I got it," she whispered, placing it gently in his hands. Adrian stared at the book for a moment, then looked up at her. "Thank you," he said softly. Two simple words. But to Maya, they felt like sunlight cracking through a dark cloud. No one ever thanked her. Not sincerely, not kindly, not gently. She swallowed, her voice tiny. "You're welcome." After that night, something shifted. Maya began doing small things for him, adjusting his blanket, bringing his meals to him, opening the window for fresh air, reading instructions on his medication bottles. Not because she was forced to, because she wanted to help. And Adrian, who was so used to therapists, nurses, and assistants, felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Comfort, not professional care, not medical routines, just pure human kindness. One night, as Maya placed a glass of water on his table, he whispered, "Thank you for being here." Maya froze. No one had ever said those words to her. Her voice trembled. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "Just know that I'm grateful." Her chest tightened with an emotion she hadn't recognized in years. Warmth. Not love, not yet. Not affection, not yet. Just warmth. The kind that made you want to breathe deeper. The kind that made you want tomorrow to arrive a little faster. The kind that made loneliness feel less heavy. Their marriage was still quiet, still awkward, still uncertain. But now silence didn't feel painful. Felt peaceful. Two broken souls were slowly learning to sit in the same room without fear. Two wounded hearts were learning the first steps toward healing. And though neither of them said it out loud, they both felt it. Something was changing. Not fast, not dramatically, but slowly, like dawn creeping over the horizon. A marriage built on silence and sadness was beginning to breathe. The first week of their marriage passed quietly, almost too quietly. No shouting, no arguments, no dramatic fights, just two gentle souls learning how to exist beside each other. But something new had started blooming in the silence. Something unexpected. Something neither of them knew how to name yet. It began with small conversations. A question here, comment there, a shy glance shared over breakfast. Each day, the silence softened a little more. On the third morning, Adrian asked, "Do you like reading?" Maya blinked, surprised he was speaking to her. I used to. Before." She hesitated. "My aunt didn't like me reading. She said it was a waste of time." Adrian's eyebrows drew together. "That's unfair." Maya shrugged, giving the smallest sad smile. "It's okay. I'm used to it." He wanted to say you shouldn't be, but he didn't know how to say it without sounding angry on her behalf. So he simply nodded. That evening, he handed her a book. "I think you'll like this one," he said softly. "It's about a girl who discovers her own strength." Maya held the book as though it were something fragile and precious. "Thank you," she whispered, eyes shining. On the fifth day, Maya helped him during his physical therapy session. His parents usually assisted, but they were out running errands, so it was just the two of them. Adrian struggled to lift himself from the bed into his wheelchair, and the pain hit him fast, sharp, burning, overwhelming. He gritted his teeth, trying to hide it. But Maya noticed immediately. "It's okay," she said quietly, stepping closer. "Take your time." He exhaled shakily. "I hate this." "I know," she whispered. "But I'm here. You're not doing it alone." The words felt warm against the cold heaviness he carried inside him. Together, they managed to complete the therapy exercises. Slow, painful, frustrating steps toward a future he wasn't sure he would ever reach. But for the first time in months, he didn't feel ashamed of his struggle. Not with her watching him with gentle, patient eyes. By the sixth day, laughter entered the house again. Came unexpectedly, like a spark in the dark. They were in the kitchen, Maya slicing vegetables while Adrian sat at the table giving unhelpful cooking advice. "You're cutting them too small," he teased. She looked at him with raised eyebrows. "Do you want to try cutting them yourself?" He blinked. "No, I can't." She smiled softly. "Then let me cut them any size I want." He opened his mouth, pretending to object, then burst into a laugh. A soft, warm sound Maya wasn't expecting. She stared at him for a moment. "You're laughing," she said quietly, as though observing a rare miracle. He paused, suddenly self-conscious. "Sorry. Don't apologize." She shook her head. "It's nice." Her cheeks felt warm. His chest felt lighter. The kitchen didn't feel lonely anymore. But the seventh day, that was the day everything changed. It began like any other morning. Sunlight spilled into the house. Birds chirped outside the window. Life felt quieter, softer, warmer. Maya had just finished making breakfast when she heard voices coming from Adrian's room. She didn't want to intrude. She respected his privacy more than anything. So she started to walk away, but then she heard a sentence that made her freeze. "Adrian, we finally found the surgery that can restore your walking. But the cost is extremely high." The doctor's voice was low and serious. Maya stopped breathing. A surgery? A chance for him to walk again? After everything he'd been through? She took a tiny step backward, her heart pounding. Through the slightly open door, she saw Adrian sitting up in his wheelchair, his face pale but hopeful. How much is it?" he asked. The doctor hesitated. "A lot. more than most people can afford. And since your insurance no longer covers advanced treatments, Maya felt the weight of those words like a punch. Then she heard Adrian whisper, voice breaking, I don't have that kind of money anymore. Silence followed. Painful silence. Shattering silence. Adrian looked down at his legs, his hands trembling. It's okay, he murmured after a long moment. I'll just accept my life like this. The resignation in his voice stabbed Maya's heart. Not because he pitied himself. Adrian wasn't that kind of person. But because he had finally reached the point where hope felt too heavy for him to lift. Maya stepped away from the door quietly. She didn't want to be seen listening. But her heart felt like it was cracking open. That afternoon, the house felt colder. Adrian didn't speak much. He didn't smile. He didn't tease her about her cooking. He simply stared out the window as though the world outside was moving on without him. Maya wanted to say something. Wanted to comfort him. Wanted to tell him he deserved more than this broken path life had forced on him. But she didn't know how. She didn't know the right words. So instead, she made tea and placed it beside him. You don't have to drink it, she whispered. I just thought it might help. He didn't look at her. But he did say, thank you. And that was enough to tell her he was hurting more deeply than he showed. That night, after everyone fell asleep, Maya sat alone in the quiet living room. Her hands trembled as she held Adrian's old laptop. She didn't like going through his things. She respected his privacy. But this wasn't about invading his life. This was about saving it. She remembered something she once saw in a stack of his old files. A photograph she wasn't meant to see. A younger Adrian, smiling brightly, standing beside the CEO of a huge tech company, Novatech Industries. Her heart thudded. The memory came back to her clearly. A caption underneath the photo. Our youngest ambassador. Maya's eyes widened. Connection. Possibility. A thread of hope. She began searching the laptop, scanning through emails, photos, presentations, anything that might help her reach the company. She found the email address of the CEO in an old contact list. Her breath caught. Could she really do this? Would they listen to her? Would they even remember him? Maybe not. But wasn't it worth trying? For him? For the man who had shown her kindness when no one else had? Her hands shook as she opened a blank email. Her eyes stung with tears she didn't bother wiping away. Then she began typing. My husband Adrian Moore is the most brilliant man your company has ever worked with. He is sick now and he needs surgery to walk again. He spent all his money trying to get better. Please help him. He deserves one more chance. She stared at the words. Too simple, too raw, too honest. But it was the truth. She attached the photo, took a deep breath, and hit send. After she sent it, Maya sat in silence, staring at the laptop screen. Her heart raced. Her thoughts spiraled. What if they ignored it? What if they thought she was lying? What if she made things worse? But she didn't regret it. Not for a second. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving. She was fighting. And she was fighting for someone who deserved to stand again. To dream again. To hope again. Adrian had given her kindness. She would give him everything she had in return. As she closed the laptop and pressed it gently to her chest, she whispered into the stillness of the dark room. Please, let this work. She didn't know it yet, but that email, small, shaky, desperate, was about to change their lives forever. Not just Adrian's life, hers too. Because love didn't always begin with fireworks. Sometimes, it began with courage. And one brave act on a quiet night. The house was quiet the next morning. Too quiet, the kind that felt heavy, like a blanket made of sadness. Maya barely slept. She kept waking up, checking her phone, refreshing her inbox, praying for a miracle she wasn't even sure was possible. Adrian didn't know about the email. He didn't know she had been awake until sunrise. He didn't know she was fighting a battle on his behalf. Quietly, fiercely, desperately. He only knew that another day had begun, and he was trapped in the same broken body, the same aching legs, the same shrinking hope. After breakfast, Adrian sat near the window, his eyes distant, lost in a storm of thoughts. Maya stood in the doorway watching him carefully. He didn't look sad, he looked gone. Like he was present in the room but his heart was somewhere far away. Like he had made peace with losing everything. Maya pressed a palm to her chest, trying to steady herself. She wanted to tell him she had done something. She wanted to tell him help might be coming. But she didn't want to give him false hope. Not him. Not Adrian. He had already been disappointed enough for a lifetime. So she said nothing. She simply walked in and placed a warm cup of tea beside him. "Thank you," he murmured, not looking up. She forced a small smile. "You're welcome." The silence between them wasn't cold, just full of unspoken fears. Hours passed. Maya cleaned, cooked, read part of the book Adrian gave her. But her mind was somewhere else entirely. She checked her phone constantly. Nothing. Still nothing. Still. Then a vibration. A single buzz. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She grabbed the phone so fast it almost slipped from her hands. A new email appeared on the screen. From Novatech Industries. Maya's vision blurred with sudden tears. She held her breath and tapped the message open. Her eyes flew over the words, then widened, then filled with tears again, this time uncontrollable, unstoppable, overwhelming tears. They remembered Adrian. They admired him. They were grateful for everything he once did for them. And then the words that changed everything. "We would like to fully fund his surgery." Her hands flew to her mouth. Fully fund. All costs. No conditions. But there was more. And one more thing. "We want him to return as our new CEO." Maya gasped. CEO. Not employee. Not assistant. Not consultant. CEO. Of one of the biggest tech companies in the country. She felt her knees weaken. This wasn't just a miracle. This was beyond anything she dared to dream. She scrolled down with shaking hands. "Our private jet is on its way to him." Maya froze. A jet. A literal jet. Coming for Adrian. Her breath stopped in her throat. She wiped her tears with trembling fingers, then sprinted down the hallway. She burst into Adrian's room. "Adrian!" she cried out, breathless. He turned from the window, startled. "Maya? What's wrong?" "You need to pack," she said, her voice shaking. He blinked. "Pack? Why? What happened? Are we leaving?" Before she could answer, a massive roar echoed from outside. The ground trembled. The windows shook. Adrian's parents came rushing into the room. "What is that noise?" his mother shouted, panicked. Maya ran to the window and yanked it open. A blast of wind hit her face. Everyone gasped. A private jet, huge, sleek, silver, was landing in the open field behind the house. Engines thundering like distant thunder. Dust billowed everywhere. The neighbors screamed and rushed outside. Phones up, jaws dropping. Adrian stared, stunned, gripping the wheels of his chair. "Is that for us?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. "It's for you." Within minutes, 2 executives in tailored suits stepped out of the jet, followed by security officers. They walked toward the house with purpose, polished shoes crunching against gravel, wind whipping at their coats. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile, approached Adrian. "Mr. Moore?" she asked reverently. "I can't begin to explain how honored we are to meet you again." Adrian looked confused, overwhelmed, speechless. "But," I thought, "I'm broke. I can't even." "You can walk again," the man beside her said firmly. "And we're going to make sure of it." Adrian's parents burst into tears. Adrian shook his head. "I don't understand. Why would you do this for me?" The executive woman smiled softly. "Because Maya wrote to us." Adrian turned slowly toward Maya. She felt suddenly shy under his gaze, her hands clasping nervously. The woman continued. "Her email was powerful. Her love and belief in you moved all of us." Maya's cheeks flushed. Adrian's eyes widened, his voice trembling. "You did this?" She nodded, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "I couldn't just stand there and watch you give up. If anyone deserves a miracle, It's you. Adrian stared at her as though seeing sunlight for the first time in years. The executive man cleared his throat. We need to board now. The medical team is waiting in the city. Adrian's parents nodded, helping him toward the jet. But before entering, the female executive paused and smiled at Maya. Thank you, she said sincerely. You saved him. Maya couldn't speak. She simply nodded, tears falling freely again. Inside the jet, Adrian reached out a hand toward her. Maya, he whispered, voice shaking. You gave me hope again. She took his hand gently. I believe in you, she said, her voice soft but steady. Even when you don't believe in yourself. And he knew in that moment that she meant every word. They boarded together. Maya pushing his wheelchair onto the private jet, his parents following behind, the wind whipping around them like the world itself was cheering. As the doors closed, their old lives stayed outside. The pain, the loneliness, the rejections, the broken days. Inside the jet, hand in hand, a new story was beginning. A story no one expected. A story built on courage. A story built on kindness. A story Maya had written with one brave email. And it was only the beginning. The flight to the medical facility felt like a dream. One of those strange, impossible dreams where reality bends in ways you never imagined. Adrian sat beside the window, his wheelchair secured in place, his fingers trembling slightly on the armrests. Maya sat next to him, close enough for comfort but far enough to respect his space. His parents sat across from them, whispering prayers under their breath. Outside, clouds swept along the sky in soft white waves. Inside, hope glimmered for the first time in years. The jet landed smoothly on a private runway beside a state-of-the-art medical center. Shiny glass buildings, polished floors, and staff members waiting outside like he was royalty. As the doors opened, a team of nurses approached with warm smiles. Mr. Moore, one said gently. We've been expecting you. Adrian swallowed hard. He wasn't used to people looking at him like he mattered anymore. Like he was someone important. Like he was someone worth saving. Maya's hand brushed his lightly, a tiny gesture that grounded him. You're safe, she whispered. You're not alone. He looked at her, the gratitude in his eyes deeper than words. Inside the facility, Adrian was guided to a private suite. White walls, soft lighting, advanced equipment, and a bed that looked more comfortable than anything he had slept in since the accident. The lead surgeon entered shortly after. He was tall, calm, confident, the kind of man who brought reassurance with him like a second skin. Mr. Moore, he said warmly, I've reviewed your scans. The surgery is complex, but absolutely possible. Adrian's breath hitched. You mean, I could walk again? The surgeon nodded. With time, therapy, and determination. Yes. Adrian exhaled shakily. His mother covered her mouth to hide a sob. His father placed a hand on his shoulder, voice thick. Son, this is your second chance. But Maya, standing quietly near the door, felt something else rising inside her. Not relief, not excitement, not even hope. Something deeper. This was the moment she prayed for. The moment she fought for. The moment she wrote that desperate email for. And seeing Adrian's eyes light up, even for a second, it made everything worth it. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing like storms inside his head. What if it doesn't work? What if it goes wrong? What if I wake up worse than before? Maya noticed him tossing and turning. She approached his bed quietly. Are you okay? He sighed, frustrated. No, I'm terrified, Maya. Of the surgery? Of everything. He looked away. Of hoping again. She sat on the chair beside him. Hope is scary. He gave a small, sad laugh. That's an understatement. But, she continued gently, you're not facing it alone. Adrian turned to her, surprised. She lifted her chin with a small, brave smile. I'm here, she said. No matter what happens tomorrow. I'm right here. His throat tightened. He looked at her, really looked at her, at her shy strength, her quiet bravery. her heart that somehow cared enough to pull him out of darkness. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." She shook her head. "You deserve to be helped, Adrian." Those words wrapped around him like a warm blanket. For the first time since the accident, he drifted into sleep peacefully. Morning arrived too quickly. Nurses entered the room, preparing him for surgery. The air smelled of disinfectant and cold metal. Machines beeped softly. Adrian's heart pounded. Maya stood beside him, holding his hand as the nurses adjusted his fore. "You're shaking," she whispered. He nodded. "I know." She squeezed his hand gently. "Breathe with me." They inhaled together, exhaled together. For a moment the room felt still, as if their quiet connection had slowed the world around them. A doctor signaled it was time. Maya leaned close, her voice soft but firm. "You're stronger than you think." He swallowed. "Come closer." She bent toward him. Adrian whispered, "When I walk again, I want the first steps to be toward you." Maya's breath caught. Before she could respond, the nurses began wheeling him away. Their fingers lingered together until the very last second. The surgery lasted hours. Long, agonizing hours. Maya paced the waiting room nonstop, her shoes brushing against the floor with every frantic step. She clutched the book Adrian gave her, but she didn't read a single page. His parents sat close together, hands intertwined, whispering silent prayers. Every time a doctor or nurse walked by, Maya's heart stopped. She kept imagining the worst. Every minute felt like an eternity. Every second felt heavy. Then suddenly, the door opened. The surgeon stepped out. Maya froze, her entire body trembling. Adrian's mother rose to her feet. "Doctor? Please, what happened?" The surgeon smiled. A real smile. "The surgery worked." Maya collapsed into the nearest chair, tears pouring down her face. Adrian's father hugged his wife tightly, both of them crying. The surgeon continued, "It will take time. Therapy will be hard. Pain will be part of the process. But he has every chance of fully walking again." Maya covered her face with her hands. "Thank you," she whispered into her palms. "Thank you." Adrian woke up hours later in recovery. The first person he saw wasn't a doctor. It was Maya. She sat beside him, eyes puffy from crying, hair a little messy, but her smile could have lit up the whole room. "You're awake," she whispered, relief flooding her voice. He blinked slowly. "Did it work?" She nodded, tears welling again. "Yes, it worked." He exhaled shakily, emotion choking him. Maya reached out and wiped a tear from his cheek, before she even realized what she was doing. Adrian grasped her hand, his voice soft and raw. "You saved my life." Maya shook her head. "You saved mine too." The days that followed were some of the hardest and most beautiful of Adrian's life. Therapy was brutal. His muscles trembled with each exercise. His legs felt heavy, stiff, weak. Pain shot through him often enough to make him gasp. But Maya was there every single day, adjusting his crutches, massaging his legs when the pain got unbearable, holding his arm when he felt like collapsing, whispering encouragement into his ears. "You can do it. Just one more step. I'm right here. You're not alone." Sometimes he cried from frustration. Sometimes he shouted into his pillow. But Maya never left his side. Even when he didn't believe in himself, she believed enough for both of them. Then came the moment that changed everything. Adrian stood without crutches, fully. His legs trembled but held his weight. Maya stared at him, hands over her mouth, eyes wide and shimmering. You're standing," she breathed. Adrian looked down in disbelief, then up at her, and his voice broke. "Maya, I'm standing." He took one step, then another. Tears streamed down her face as she rushed toward him, carefully, gently, ready to catch him if he fell. But he didn't fall. He walked into her arms, and Maya, overwhelmed and trembling, whispered through her tears, "You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me strength when I was weak. You gave me life when I didn't know how to live." And now, you gave me my legs back. Adrian wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, his voice a shaky whisper in her ear. You're the reason I'm still here. In that moment, neither of them felt broken anymore. They felt whole. Together, the rise had begun. Not just of his body, not just of his legs, but of their hearts. And nothing would ever be the same again. 3 months later, Adrian Moore stood taller than he had in years. Not emotionally, not figuratively, literally. He stood. His legs, once lifeless and numb, now held him up with strength, shaky confidence, and endless gratitude. Therapy had reshaped his body. Maya had reshaped his spirit. Every day he grew stronger. Every day she became the reason he kept fighting. And now, finally, he was returning home. The same private jet that carried him to the medical facility waited on the runway, sleek and bright under the afternoon sun. But this time, Adrian wasn't being rolled toward it in a wheelchair. He walked beside it, slow, careful, but walking. The pilots watched with wide eyes. The executives clapped. The nurses smiled with pride. Maya walked at his side, her hand hovering near his elbow, not touching unless he needed her, but ready, always ready. His parents followed behind, tears already gathering. As they stepped onto the jet, Adrian paused and looked back at the place that had healed him. But the person who healed him most was beside him. Maya, he said softly, I wouldn't be walking today if you didn't believe in me. Her eyes softened. You did the hard part. He shook his head. No, you made me want to try. She blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. He took her hand slowly, gently. Let's go home, he whispered, and they boarded the jet together. The flight home felt completely different this time. On their first flight, Adrian sat quiet and afraid, wheels strapped tightly, hope slipping like sand through his fingers. But now, he sat comfortably, legs stretched out, hands relaxed. He looked out the window with excitement swirling in his chest. His parents kept sneaking proud glances at him. And Maya, sweet, shy Maya, looked more peaceful than he had ever seen her. You look happy, he said softly. She smiled, her cheeks warming. I am. Good, he whispered. You deserve to be. Maya looked away, flustered, trying to hide her smile. He watched her with quiet affection. She had saved his life, his future, his dreams. And now he understood something he had been too afraid to admit. She had also saved his heart. When the jet landed, the runway was packed. Neighbors, old friends, curious strangers, people who had doubted him, people who had pitied him. They were all there. News had spread. Someone had seen the jet approaching. Someone had told someone else. And by the time the plane touched down, half the town was waiting. As the doors opened, sunlight poured inside. Adrian took a deep breath. Ready? Maya asked. He nodded. More ready than ever. He stepped out of the jet, placing one foot on the metal ramp. Gasps erupted from the crowd. He's walking. No way. Impossible. That's Adrian Moore? He looks so different. Adrian took another step, then another. He held his back straight, shoulders squared, eyes bright with pride and freedom. His parents beamed like they were watching their son take his first steps all over again. But the person he was searching for in the crowd wasn't them. He found her immediately. Maya. She watched him with shining eyes, lips parted in awe, as if she were seeing a miracle unfold right in front of her. He reached the bottom of the ramp and turned to her. Walk with me? He asked, offering his hand. She hesitated only for a heartbeat before placing her hand in his. And together they walked toward the crowd. At the front stood Maya's aunt. Her expression was a mix of shock, desperation, and a trace of envy. Maya! She cried out, pushing through people. Please, come back home. The crowd fell silent. Maya froze. Adrian tightened his grip on her hand. Her aunt stepped closer, eyes frantic. You're my niece. I took care of you. You belong with me. Maya swallowed. For years, her aunt's voice made her shrink, made her hide. made her believe she wasn't worth anything. But now her world was different. Now she had seen kindness. Now she had seen love. Now she had seen what it felt like to be valued. Slowly, Maya stepped forward. Her aunt smiled, thinking she had won, until Maya spoke. "I forgive you," she said softly. Her aunt blinked. "But," Maya continued, her voice steady, "you don't own me." Gasps spread through the crowd. Her aunt's face twisted. "What nonsense are you saying? Don't be foolish. You're coming home with me." Maya shook her head gently. "No, I have a home now." Her aunt scoffed. "With who?" "Him." Adrian stepped forward, standing tall, really tall, and looked her aunt straight in the eyes. "With me," he said calmly, "where she will be loved, cherished, and protected." The crowd murmured. Maya's aunt stumbled backward, stunned by his confidence. Maya turned to Adrian. Tears filled her eyes. Not sad tears. Not scared tears. Relieved tears. "You really mean that?" she whispered. Adrian cupped her cheek gently. Careful, respectful, tender. "I've never meant anything more," he said. And the world around them fell away. The whispers. The months of pain. The years of loneliness. The broken pieces of both their pasts. None of it mattered. Not anymore. A black limousine rolled forward, sent by Novatech to take Adrian and his family home. The crowd parted as the door opened. Adrian held Maya's hand tightly. "Ready for our new life?" he asked softly. "Our life?" she repeated, as if tasting the words. He nodded. "Yes, I don't want this journey without you." Her lips trembled. "Adrian," he smiled. "It's our life now, Maya, and it's only the beginning." She stepped into the limousine beside him, her heart pounding in her chest. The door closed. Outside, the private jet engines cooled. The crowd whispered. Her aunt stared in disbelief. The sun dipped low behind the trees. Inside the car, Maya placed a shaky hand over her heart. "I can't believe this is my life," she whispered. Adrian intertwined their fingers gently. "It's our life," he whispered back. "And we're just getting started." Maya looked at him with wonder in her eyes. She wasn't the fat orphan the world rejected anymore. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't unwanted. She was Maya Moore, the girl who saved her husband, the girl who found love, the girl who rose from nothing. And beside her sat the man whose life she rebuilt, who, in turn, rebuilt hers. Together, they were unstoppable. Their first wedding had been quiet, cold, and filled with sadness. Two broken souls pushed into a future they didn't understand. But this wedding was theirs, chosen, desired, celebrated, and built on a love that neither of them expected, but both of them now cherished with their whole hearts. It all began a month after Adrian's return. By then, he was walking confidently, still slow sometimes, still careful, but completely independent. His parents were always smiling now, relief written in every line of their faces. And Maya was glowing, not because of makeup or fancy clothes, but because, for the first time in her life, she felt safe, loved, wanted. The house felt different too, lighter, warmer. Every morning, Adrian woke up, stretched his legs, still amazed he could, and then walked into the kitchen where Maya always waited with tea. Every morning, she'd shyly ask, "How did you sleep?" And every morning, he'd smile and answer, "Better with you near." Their connection grew quietly, beautifully, full of gentle touches, soft conversations, and moments so tender they felt almost unreal. One evening, while they watched the sunset from the backyard, Adrian took a breath and said, "I want to marry you again." Maya's heart stopped. Again?" He nodded. "Yes, not because we were told to, not because life forced us to, but because I choose you. I want a wedding where you feel loved, seen, celebrated. A real wedding." Maya covered her mouth with trembling hands as tears filled her eyes. "No one has ever chosen me before," she whispered. Adrian gently lifted her chin. "Well then, let me be the first of many," she cried. He held her, and under the fading orange sky, she said yes. The news spread like wildfire. This time, people weren't whispering cruel words. This time, they weren't mocking her weight or pitying Adrian's injuries. This time, they were in awe. A billionaire tech company CEO marrying the quiet girl no one saw? A girl who once walked with her head down, now preparing for a royal-like celebration? Everyone wanted to be there. Adrian's executive team offered to sponsor the entire event. The mayor asked to attend. Business leaders, celebrities, and dignitaries RSVP'd the moment invitations went out. But Adrian and Maya wanted something simpler. Not a show, not a performance, not a parade. They wanted beauty, warmth, and truth. So they chose a quiet garden venue tucked behind a scenic hill. Strings of lights were hung in golden arcs. Roses lined the aisle. A soft instrumental band practiced love songs under the gazebo. Everything felt magical. Everything felt perfect. Everything felt like a story that finally found its way home. On the morning of the wedding, Maya stood in front of a mirror, her heart beating wildly. Her gown was breathtaking, soft, flowing, elegant, designed specially for her. It hugged her curves beautifully, with lace sleeves that made her look like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. For the first time in her life, when she looked at her reflection, she didn't see the fat orphan her aunt spent years tormenting. She saw a woman transformed by love and bravery, a woman who saved a man's future, a woman who fought for someone's life, a woman worthy of everything good. Her eyes filled with tears. Adrian's mother entered the room quietly and froze. "Oh, Maya," she breathed, hand on her chest. "You're stunning." Maya smiled shyly. "Thank you." The older woman stepped closer and held her hands. "You were the miracle this family never expected," she whispered. "Thank you for loving my son back to life." Maya broke. She hugged her tightly, tears dampening the woman's shoulder. "Thank you for giving me a home," Maya whispered back. Outside, the guests gathered. Beautiful decorations sparkled as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in warm colors. Strings of fairy lights glowed like tiny stars. Adrian stood at the altar, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. His hair combed neatly, his posture strong. Not in a wheelchair, not broken, not hopeless. He was a man reborn. And the moment he saw Maya at the end of the aisle, his breath stopped, his eyes softened, his heart swelled. He whispered under his breath, "My God, she's beautiful." Guests stood. Music filled the air. Maya held a bouquet of soft white roses, walking slowly, her eyes locked on Adrian the whole time. Each step she took felt like she was leaving her old life behind. Each step carried every scar, every tear, every painful memory. Each step brought her closer to a future filled with love. And when she reached him, Adrian took her hand with trembling fingers. "You look like a dream," he whispered. She blushed, smiling shyly. "And you look alive." He laughed softly, but his voice broke. "Because of you." The officiant began. This time there were no whispers, no pitiful glances, no stares filled with cruelty. Only admiration, only joy, only awe. When it was time for vows, Adrian cleared his throat and held her hands. "Maya, the day you walked into my life, I felt broken beyond repair. I had lost my future, my hope, and my heart. But you gave them all back to me. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You saved my life. Today, I promise to protect your heart the way you protected mine." Maya's tears streamed down her face. Then she spoke, voice small but steady. "Adrian, you were the first person who ever saw me, really saw me. Not the insults, not the shame, not the lies I grew up hearing. You saw me, and you made me feel like I deserved love for the first time in my life. Today, I promise to stand by you the way you stood by me, even when I was too afraid to stand for myself." Sniffles filled the crowd. Even the mayor wiped a tear. When the officiant finally said, "By the power vested in me, you may kiss your bride," Adrian cupped Maya's face with both hands, careful, reverent, full of love, and kissed her gently. Not a showy kiss, not a rushed kiss. A slow, tender kiss that held every moment of their shared pain, healing, and hope. The guests erupted in applause. Some cried, some cheered, some whispered, This is real love." Maya leaned into Adrian's chest, her heart racing. "We did it," she whispered. Adrian kissed her forehead. "No, you did it. You saved us." The reception was a dream. Soft lights, joyful laughter, warm music. Adrian and Maya danced together under the stars. His hands on her waist, her arms resting on his shoulders, their foreheads touching. "You're trembling," she whispered. He smiled. "Because I'm holding the most beautiful woman in the world." Maya blushed, hiding her face against his chest. "Don't say things like that," she murmured. "Why not?" he asked softly. "It's true." When she looked up at him, her eyes shimmered. "I can't believe this is my life," she breathed. Adrian kissed the corner of her lips. "It's our life," he whispered back. "And it's only the beginning." She smiled up at him, her heart full. For the first time ever, she wasn't scared of the future, because she wouldn't be facing it alone. She was Maya Moore now, loved, cherished, seen. And beside her stood Adrian Moore, the man she saved, the man she healed, the man who chose her again and again. As the night glowed around them, they danced like two souls who had finally found home. Together, they weren't broken. Together, they were unstoppable. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.